Brent, I want to start with you though, because we're live for the very first time on YouTube. Are you doing okay? How are you holding up?
Hanging in there. I got hit with I don't know, some sort of sickness. I don't know if it was coronavirus. My son was sick. Now my sister-in-law is sick. It's strange, man. I haven't been tested. There aren't that many out here in Nevada, so all the symptoms seem to add up. I actually talked with Liv a couple days ago, and we were quite certain, nope, no way it's coronavirus. But then all of a sudden, I got nailed. My sister-in-law got nailed. So I don't know, Remco. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. But it's good to hear that it's going better. Liv, now to you. Now that audio is fixed, you can once again explain how much you've been enjoying the quarantine, right?
Enjoying quarantine. I have to say I don't know. I've become a bit of a housebound person anyway in general for the last few months, so it's not that much of a difference. Egor and I moved in with three friends. We're in a house in the country here in England, so it's pretty nice. Although not being able to go out is kind of annoying, and I've also I was meant to be actually in America right now giving talks, obviously at these conferences which have all been cancelled, so definitely a bit disruptive, but yeah, I don't know. It's as everyone keeps saying, it's like an opportunity to try all those like things that everyone's been putting off because they've been so busy. For those people who aren't able to go to work right now, you can whatever thing you wanted to learn is a good time, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's the strangest of timelines that we're living in, and we'll get to some are we living in a sim talk in just a bit, because there's a lot of strange stuff happening. We have a lot of stuff prepared for you on this podcast, some serious stuff, some silly stuff, but I'd like to also remind the audience to please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're doing this every single week, so we'd love to have you with us, no matter who the guest is, because of course it's fun to tune in when Liv is here, but let's just all come back when we have different guests on the show. We got a lot of questions on Twitter already. We're going to dive into those as well. People in the chat, please also send us your questions for Liv, and we can try to tackle as many of those as possible. But let's start with some questions off Twitter, because there's quite a lot of intrigue and interest in your expertise on some of these topics. Brent, anything stand out from the questions asked on Twitter from you?
No, I don't have anything on Twitter. I'm looking at the chat.
Oh, you're looking at the chat. Okay.
YouTube.
You keep an eye on chat.
And Chad actually had a question on Twitter. That's the one that I do have.
Okay, go ahead.
So, is Remco on a bike during this podcast?
Yes, I'm currently sitting on a bicycle. That is correct.
All right, there's one.
Okay. Let's see. Let me just pick up these Twitter questions here. We're going to get real serious real quick. Andrew Barber wants to know, has COVID increased or decreased your confidence that humans can respond well to an existential crisis?
Oh, geez.
Good God.
Okay, well, the thing is that my confidence that humans could respond well to existential risks was incredibly low from the outset. So I don't know. I don't know how much that has changed. I think it depends on the existential risk. Not that, to be very clear, I don't think coronavirus is any kind of existential risk. Like, we'll make it through this. It's just a question of whether it'll be a little bad or really bad. So I guess it just depends on the existential risk in terms of like some kind of future scary synthetic biology pandemic, which there is a risk of at some point in the next coming decades. We will be better prepared to deal with that now in light of this. The biggest silver lining of coronavirus will be that it will make society more robust against future pandemics, because this is a big, I don't know, for me and quite a few of my other sort of people who in the effective altruism and community and so on, we've been expecting something like this to happen. We didn't know when it was going to happen, but we were expecting there to be some kind of outbreak at some point in the coming years. So this wasn't like an immense shock, but I think for a lot of other people, this is like a real wake up call. Like, oh shit, stuff isn't quite as robust as we thought it was. Things are fragile and can go wrong. And so, yeah, I think all in all, this will be a net positive, but I don't know, there's been so many like blundering mistakes that major governments and world leaders have been making, that I think that cancels out my general confidence in terms of our ability to handle it.
Yeah, I think that ties in directly to your video that you made on your YouTube channel, and we want to give that a shout out right away. You guys can find the description. In the description below, you can find a link to Liv's YouTube channel with lots of science and interesting people and personalities being interviewed and topics being discussed that are way, way, way over my head, but you have found a really good way to present those topics. So it's been very educational in that sense and also entertaining and funny to watch. So the video you made was, I believe, about the misconceptions about the COVID virus that we're dealing with right now. Was it more fun or painful to have to make a video like this?
I mean, I really, really love it. Not even so much the recording of videos, but I love the editing and just like thinking of memes and weird, just like fiddling around with the editing software. So that was very fun in terms of like the data collection, in terms of like figuring out what are the most annoying arguments. I mean, that was not a fun process, just because, a month ago I'd be on Twitter and someone's like, this is just the flu. It's just the flu. Shut up. Like, it's like China doesn't like quarantine half their country for the flu. Come on. So yeah, it was more sort of just like an outlet for my frustration, that particular video, on a lot of the arguments. I definitely could have, my goal with it, like, hopefully it's convinced some people who still were unsure about these arguments, but my goal was almost just like, a sort of an expulsion of frustration at the situation, as opposed to like trying to take people who really don't understand what's going on. And well, I mean, hopefully it does teach some people, but yeah, I want to do another follow-up video that's a little bit more serious, sort of talking about tail risks, which is like this idea of, these like black swan events that are very low likelihood to happen, but have such high consequences if they do happen, that we still need to find a way to prepare for them, and sort of talking about these like probability distributions and so on. So that's what I'm currently working on.
What is your number one right now as it stands? And I know whether it is in the video. What are you most concerned about, worried about from a world point of view regarding this virus?
I mean, well, the unnecessary death is a pretty obvious one, but I mean, at the same time, like, it's all these knock-on effects as well. Like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because whatever we do, it's going to hurt the economy, and it's really, really complicated to actually model and calculate how much disruption of the economy is worth it. Is worth sort of taking these strong measures. But it seems like, I mean, I should preface all of this with that I am not an expert. I'm not an economist. I'm not an epidemiologist. So I'm only going off, sort of what I can glean from the people that are, and I'm trying to read as much as possible, but I'm still don't take my advice as anything meaningful. It seems like the consensus right now is that the next 2-3 weeks are so fucking crucial in terms of getting people to actually lock down in their houses and not let this spread fast, for both saving lives, but also for the economy, because it's not like if we just let it do its thing, it's not going to hurt the economy. If 1 or 2% or 0.5% of the world's population dies, that's also devastating for the economy. So that's why it seems like the cost benefit is definitely in favor of us doing these like pretty draconian measures right now to stop this thing going any worse.
It's so hard to find any positivity in all these weeks of sort of people staying at home and hoping that every government in and of itself makes the right decision. The most frustrating thing to me has been how, in many ways, we could have seen this coming based on what happened in, first in China and then in South Korea and then what happened in Italy. But everyone seems to only act when it really affects them in their country. And that's worthy of an eye roll on many different levels.
Yeah.
From where you are right now, how are things being handled in the UK, and how do you feel about sort of the measures being taken?
If you'd asked me this question a week ago, I would have had a lot of bad things to say. From what I understand, the government were just given some really bad advice. I don't know where that advice came from, but they some of their science officers had told them that maybe the herd immunity thing was the way to go, and like their projections suggested there weren't going to be that many deaths if you just let it run its course. And then other scientists showed them their models and were like, look, this is what it's going to be, and their models are more correct. And the government did a complete 180, which is really, really encouraging. And now, like, we literally, in the UK, like, we all got sent text messages, the whole country today, saying this is not a polite request for you to stay home. It is a strict rule. I don't know if you're technically breaking the law if you flout it, but you're certainly, yeah, I think you are actually, because I think the police could do something. So they've gone from like 0 to 100. Well, not 100, but they've gone like 0 to 80, which is a huge change. So yeah, it's really encouraging. And I have to say, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of our prime minister or the government, I have actually been really impressed with how they've been communicating it, and how honest they've been, because that's, it's one thing to sort of screw up, but then to also sort of say, look, or to talk about that you're uncertain. Like a lot of governments would like try and say that they're certain about things in order to calm people down. But in something like this, the whole point is that it's so uncertain. The smartest minds in the world are trying to do the modeling now, and it's still very much a work in progress. So all of their results come with huge error bars. And so the job of a public figure or a politician is to inform the public as much as possible, but make it clear to them there are error bars on this, and that there's a lot of uncertainty. And so what I was impressed with like Boris Johnson is that he was saying, he'd often say, he's like, we don't know. And we're not sure. We think this is the best thing, but this, so please follow along with us, but this might change, and so on. So, yeah, I was impressed with that. Whereas other governments, I won't say who, I'm sure people can infer who, like seem to be taking this, they seem to be allergic to this idea of nuance and uncertainty. It'll just be like, statement one, and even if the next day it's a completely different statement, there's no like sort of acknowledgement of like, okay, we were unsure and we've updated, or anything like that. So yeah, and I mean, poker players are very good at thinking and speaking with like uncertainty. We always talk in percentages and probabilities to each other, and that's, I think, why the poker community has actually largely been ahead of the curve on this, is because they're comfortable in thinking that way, and being very nuanced and sort of making formal predictions in terms of probabilities. And so, yeah, that's what I'm hoping governments will sort of try, and one thing that governments will learn from this is that that's how we have to sort of think and communicate.
I mean, you just put it perfectly, and I also want to let the people know that are watching right now, you're not just going to spend an hour talking about the coronavirus. We have also fun topics queued up. This is not the depression podcast.
How can you talk about anything else?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, what you're saying is totally true, and I think I can speak for Brent as well, that in the poker community there was definitely a sense ahead of everything coming crashing down that something really serious was heading our way. And Brent, I know you've put a tweet out there as well. Your son got sick. You guys had to go to the hospital. You guys had to try to get him tested, which didn't work out. Summarize that whole experience for me, Brent, because obviously when it hits that close to home, that for many people is only the first time they're ever going to realize how serious this is.
It was terrifying. I've had my children, my two boys, home since, I want to say March 10th or so. And it was on Friday the 13th of all days where I noticed my 2-year-old had a little cough. It was wet, didn't think much of it. Sounded like he was getting a cold. And then it was on Sunday where it's like, oh shit, we need to take him in. We took him to his pediatrician, got him in right away, got him looked at. They put him on basically like a Z-Pack for kids, and they put him on a steroid for his cough, and they give him a nebulizer, albuterol, just to help with his breathing. For us as parents, it was terrifying. Our 2-year-old also had spent some time in the hospital, 8 days when he was 2 months old, and he was in PICU for a bronchial infection. So it was like PTSD, for us, and we didn't really know what to do. He never got tested at the hospital, despite having all the symptoms, in really rough shape. And on Monday, his breathing got worse, so we took him to the ER. I was panicking. My mother-in-law came over to stay with our 4-year-old. My wife and I took him to the ER and dropped him off at the door. And they went in, and I parked my truck and I grabbed the bag and I went back to rush in and I couldn't get in. They wouldn't let me go inside the hospital. And that's protocol. I totally get it, considering how contagious this is right now. But for a dad that had already been very scared for his son, not too long ago, it was, it's hard to describe really how fearful I was and sort of a loss of words. But fast forward, he's okay. He's made a nice recovery and he's good to go. I got sick shortly after that. Ran the fever. You can probably still hear it in my voice, slightly congested, a little bit of a cough and whatnot. My sister-in-law, pretty much a day or two after that, she then became ill, and we were all together. We had game night not too long ago. So we don't know. I haven't been tested. My son, despite the trip to the ER as well as his pediatrician, no tests were given here in Nevada. We just have a serious shortage. That's a problem. So we have no idea what our numbers really look like here. Hospitals are taking full precaution. You can tell when you go to a hospital, especially around the ER, they've got outside tents. You can't even go inside the hospital without going through the tents. Prior to that, everyone is all decked up in gear. So you know that they are ready for something horrible to hit this city. And, it's a shame we don't have the testing. It's a nationwide problem right now. And it sounds like it's potentially a worldwide issue in a number of countries as well. So, it's been tough. It's taken me out of my character that I'm usually in for this show, but everyone's healthy right now for the most part, and we're just hoping that no one else gets sick along the way.
Well, I did see you crack a beer already, so you're coping with this real well, I can tell.
Diet Dr. Pepper, Remco. It's not a beer, and I will have a beer later.
All right, Liv. We have a few segments on the show, some of which we've done before, some of which are new, and we're gonna subject you to one of these new ones right now. Some lighthearted questions, some perhaps a bit more serious. This segment is called "Gimme the Odds," and you guys just have to imagine beautiful graphics to go along with this. We'll probably get those eventually, but this is my first time streaming, so let's just all be serious here. But I want you to put a number on these 5 items that we've come up with. Give us the odds of these things happening. And the first one is a very obvious one. What are the odds the 2020 WSOP is going to happen?
When's it meant to start? June 1st?
Yeah, June 1st-ish. Yeah.
It's like 5-1.
5-1. Wow.
Yeah.
And is that
maybe 4-1? It's like no, it's probably less than that actually. It's probably like 10-1.
Right.
I just don't see how it can.
That it's going to happen or that it's canceled.
Sorry, it's a dog to happen. It's like 10%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way,
8 to 10% to happen. I mean, they're freaking postponing the Olympics. If the Olympics gets postponed, which is in August, I think the WSOP, as lovely as it is, it's also more of a disease vector than running in a marathon or whatever. So, yeah.
So in line with that question, if you were in charge, what time frame would you move the WSOP to? What month would you say is realistic for this to get moved to? And we're counting on you to have all the knowledge right here. You have all the knowledge.
It's not even.
Oh, geez. I mean, I feel for Jack and the team. It must be an absolute nightmare right now figuring this out. But I would postpone it. I don't know. I mean, it depends on assuming they don't have any extra costs for say holding it in December as opposed to the summer. Then I would postpone it until probably realistically early next year. Just because you don't want to have to do it again, right? You don't have to postpone again. So at least January or February if I were them.
For people in the chat, let us know when you think the World Series of Poker should take place. Do you think summer is still realistic? Do you guys think we should go to, August, September, October? Give us your thoughts in the chat. Let us know what you think. Brent, what do you think about this?
I don't see how it's not postponed. I mean, I don't have any insight on what's going on. I think Liv hit it right on the head as far as what a nightmare for Jack Effel, Ty Stewart, these folks that are making these big decisions. Is there even really a right answer? And that's what really sucks. There isn't.
Yeah, no, it's a good point for sure. I agree. All right, next one. What are the odds that this is the start of the apocalypse?
The start of the apocalypse. define the apocalypse.
So yeah, are you talking like biblical, Remco? I knew I should have edited these.
Yeah.
Run with this in however way you see fit and provide context as needed.
Okay. My definition of the apocalypse is where 70% of the world's population or more dies, prematurely and needlessly. I would give this a 1 in 1,000 chance of that. 1 in 10,000 maybe.
Oh God, I don't like that answer.
Well, the reason, but I don't know. It's just like fat tail stuff, right? It could be. Well, it's not a 1 in a billion. It's not a 1 in 50. But the thing to factor in are these like little unknowns. Like this might increase the risk. Well, we're going to get dark here. This might increase the risk of nuclear war. Let's say, or a shitty state actor that wants to take advantage of all the disruption and that can lead to other, bad. I mean, my main concern is like the increased risk of war in terms of like to incite Armageddon. But I should make it abundantly clear. I think it's exceedingly unlikely to happen, and then like negligible enough for us to not worry about. So I don't know, 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 100,000.
Wow.
Remember when we thought this would be a really fun segment, Remco? Now I'm just terrified.
Oh no, it's gonna get more fun. What are the odds that we're living in a simulation?
Oh jeez. Fuck.
By the way, you asked for this, Liv, in your TED talk.
I know. And these are exactly my type of questions. I'm just surprised I don't already have a hard answer for this. Considering like I love asking these sort of questions, and these are the particular ones I always think about. I put it at 4 to 1, 20%.
What?
I mean, I'm pulling a number out my ass. That we're living in a simulation?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Well,
I knew it.
The arguments for it are pretty, like the logical argument for it is pretty strong. And that's this idea that at some point, if our ancestors are able to simulate their history really well, and presuming they're interested to do that, which I think they would be, then and at that point, if they're at that point where they are capable of doing it, then they will have the desire to. And so, why create just one simulation? Why not create a trillion? Like why not see all the different ways that the history could have evolved? And so, given that, it's what's the likelihood that we are in the one base reality? Let's say if they could, well, trillions is a silly number, but let's say they could do 100,000 of these simulations. What's the likelihood that we're in the one that happens to be the first original one? That would be 1 in 100,000. Now there are other factors though that and that'd be 1 in 100,000 chance that we are not in a simulation. But then factor in the fact that there's many assumptions that have to go into that in order to assume that logic makes sense. So yeah, I still think it's less likely than it is.
What did you say?
25% chance this is all just a sim.
Something like that.
Well, Liv, if we are living in a simulation, how well is our sim doing? Because there's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, we made it this far. We have a lot of good things. Life is much better than it used to be. So I'd actually say it's going well, except for the fact that we are accumulating more and more of these sort of catastrophic or existential risks with our actions and behaviors and the people who we elect into power and the lack of preparedness that we do for very foreseeable things like global pandemics. So it depends what you're in this snapshot in time. Well, not right now, but if you'd asked this question like 3 months ago, I would have said it's going pretty damn well, all things considered. Now, whether the likelihood that we'll make it through the next 100 years. If anyone, by the way, is interested in this topic, there is the best book on this topic has just come out. It's called The Precipice by Toby Ord. And it discusses all of this stuff, but like really well and very like quantified as well. He tries to quantify all the different various risks that will go extinct in the next 100 years. It's surprisingly not that of a depressing read. it is stressful, but it's quite uplifting, and also because he then talks about ways we can try and reduce these risks. So I think it's arguably the most important book that's come out in the last 10 years. So yeah, read it. The Precipice.
The Precipice. Okay, you guys can find that on Amazon probably. All right, 2 more of these, and give us a percentage on these for all of us keeping score at home. What are the odds that there's intelligent life on another planet?
Oh God. So I'm actually, the more I read about this, the more I'm a subscriber to the rare earth hypothesis, which basically implies that for intelligent life, and I'm not talking about like bacteria or like basic life, but intelligent sort of our level life to exist on another planet seems to be extremely unlikely, given the fact that there is so little, we're just not detecting any signs of it, and we're looking pretty damn hard. And we can look back a long way in time as well. So it's not like we're just looking in the snapshot right now. So all those things considered, I will give the answer that this paper that's written by people far cleverer than me came to, and that was that we are roughly 50% to be alone in the universe. And we're talking about the observable universe, like the universe which we could ever look at. Beyond that, well, now we've got a whole other thing, like are there multiverses and so on. If there are multiverses, then the chances that we're the only intelligent life is tiny, and it's almost certainly other stuff out there. So, but within the observable universe, it's roughly 50-50.
You don't believe in UFOs?
The classic like flying saucer alien thing, no. I think it's extremely. I mean, I again, everything in my head is a probability distribution. I would never say 100% certainty. Like that's obviously ridiculous. But I think almost every sort of UFO sighting that people have reported over the decades can be explained away. And another interesting point to mention is that, like, in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, there were so many UFO sightings and people claiming they were seeing them. But since we've all had smartphones and cameras, everyone's got a camera on them. The number of mysterious UFO sightings and those grainy things has sort of suddenly disappeared, or it's like at least it's decreased. But you would actually have expected it to increase if they were happening, at the same frequency, which they should be, right? So that again is actually kind of evidence against it. I would love there to be aliens. And certainly if one came and landed in my backyard and I was sober while that happened, I would update and, give me the evidence. I'd be happy to see it. But I think all things considered, there are far more plausible explanations for when people claim that they've had some kind of experience like that.
I mean, I think the fact that Brent Hanks is alive and well is a good indication that there is actually alien life forms on this planet.
That is obviously strong evidence.
I used to be petrified of being abducted by aliens when I was a child. It's a true fact, true story. My mother's watching; she can attest.
Yeah, those are the worst kind of fears. The ones that, I mean, they're like irrational because there's really no. I mean, the X-Files did it to me as well, by the way. I used to be scared, like when I was home alone, and I wouldn't like to look out the window and at the stars if I was by myself because I felt like an alien would come and get me.
Yeah. That's good stuff. And then the final question in this new segment called Gimme the Odds. What are the odds that Egor Kurganov is actually just a very high-end AI?
Oh man. Depending on which day, if he's having one of his like robot days, which he sometimes has, then I would give it like a sort of quite high likelihood, like 5%, 10% chance that he is. But then all the other days, which, where I see Egor in his lovely bumbling glory, it's like 1 in a billion.
And he's right there in the room with you, right? So he's
right now,
at least in form right now.
Well, probably. I mean, if he's an AI, then he's probably here. He's like all sentient, right? So he's hearing everything we say, and he's perfectly predicted this entire conversation.
For the people watching, let us know which poker player is the most likely to be an artificial intelligent life form. Let us know in the chat who you think best qualifies for that.
Possible or no?
Yeah, Mike Postle is connected to the multiverse for sure.
Clearly, Mike Postle. Yeah.
The reason I asked this is because I did an interview with Egor. I want to say this was during the Poker Masters, where he was or no, so super high roller bowl. He was probably about 7 cocktails deep, and he went on this tangent about this hand that he played, and I was just standing there with my mouth wide open, listening to him. Is that a common occurrence that he goes on these tangents for minutes on end, and you're just like sitting there like listening to what this guy's mind is out of control?
Yes. Right. The thing is that we tend to do it with each other, and then it just gets bad because we were meant to be getting on with work, doing our tax returns or something, and then like 6 hours has passed, and we've either just like gone down some weird Wikipedia spiral trying to figure something out, and we never really come to any conclusions. He is definitely capable of doing that. We were actually talking about like why we're so excited that we're living with friends now in this house. It's because we finally have some adults around who they're real people who like run organizations and do good things. And we're like noticing that they get up at sort of 7 a.m. and they have like work time slots. They work from 8 to noon, and then they take a break for 2 hours and they do exercise. And they have this thing called a routine and a structure. And so we're excited to learn from that and try and emulate it like good little robots.
So now that you've described their lifestyle, what does your lifestyle look like these last couple of months? Is it still a lot of poker? Is it still a lot of working on your game? And how do you sort of look at that?
Me? Oh no, I like retired from poker.
Like fully retired, done forever. Pretty
much, yeah. I've played one live tournament since last July, and even at the World Series last year, I only played like 3 or 4 tournaments, I think. And yeah, no, I'm like pretty much done in terms of I don't like. I'm sure like if and when the World Series happens, I will play the main event for sure. But yeah, I kind of quit. I quit working on my game, man, a year and a half ago, 2 years, maybe even more. And it started to show. And I realized I just didn't have that fire in me, which I think you really need in order to sort of play, to play the big stuff and to play against the really greatest players. You have to work so hard now because they're so good, and I just didn't have that fire in me anymore. I love talking about poker. I love promoting the game, as a form of like getting better at decision making, being a more rational person. I think poker is so powerful for that. So I've now like shifted away from playing it to like talking about it and promoting it to conferences.
You made a really great decision not announcing your retirement to the game, because if once you do that, you automatically come back. You never really retire, so you can't.
Well, I did kinda. I semi did when I quit with Stars. I made like a little statement there saying, as you probably noticed, I've like not really been playing much anyway, and working on other things. But yeah, I didn't do like the formal I've retired.
Yeah, never happening. Never happening. Hey, while we're doing this, shout out everyone in the chat. We see you out there. Thank you so much for joining us. Anderson Urbano, Nathan Mohan saying Draconian Times. Okay, well, I hope not. Joan Fisher, Matt Morgan. My goodness, Eric Froelich. Wow, the Eric Froelich? Can that be right?
Hi.
Could be.
Wang Ang, I believe he was on a show with you, Liv. National Geographic Brain Games. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, he was. It was bizarre. They made us eat. Well, we didn't know whether we were eating wasabi or guacamole, but we had to try and keep a straight face, whatever it was, and like say this tastes nice to Ted Danson and Michael Keegan. And yeah, it was brutal because I cannot handle spicy food, and I got the wasabi. If you search for Ted Danson Brain Games, I think Poker Face, you'll find it on YouTube. It's pretty funny. Yeah, it's me, Egor, and then they also got in Wayne and Alex Furley.
That was a tremendous clip. I watched that clip and I was dead wrong on it. I think wasn't it Torelli who really tricked them the best? Like he like did like the reverse.
He was good. Well, that's the thing. We asked them. It's like how much are we allowed to game? Because obviously there's so many like little gaming tactics that you could do. But I think they just wanted us to be entertaining as possible. That was what we went for in the end.
Yeah, no, it was highly entertaining for sure. And yeah, like Brent said, so many people in the chat. It's pretty awesome to see all this engagement. If you guys have any questions for Liv, please feel free to send them over. We got plenty of time here on the show still. And what we're going to do now, Liv, is a game called 555 questions. And I have scoured all dark corners of the internet and created a list in an Excel sheet that has 555 questions. You're going to say 3 random numbers. We're going to do it one at a time. And then I'm going to ask the corresponding question, and then we might get to know something really strange about you. So let's go ahead.
Okay.
Give me a number.
Wait, oh, sorry, I have to pick a number.
Pick a number
between 1 and 555.
Yeah, correct.
18.
18. Oh, that's easy. That's right in front of me. What's your favorite book/movie of all time, and why did it speak to you so much?
For some reason it comes into my head, but it is definitely one of my favorites, Independence Day.
Oh, yeah.
I think it speaks to me because it's an existential risk movie, and I was obsessed with it when I was 10 or however what it was when it came out. And it's still just so good. That and Terminator 2, I think. So it's like these weird sort of sci-fi futuristic epic life or death thingies.
Brent, for you, it's The Big Lebowski, right?
Oh, for me, Big Lebowski, I think. I mean, in my adult life, for sure. You know, as a child, I mean, man, Independence Day, I couldn't believe she said that. That president's speech in that movie when he's rallying up the troops and the planet to go out there and battle, that is one of the greatest all-time speeches ever given.
I did it in my YouTube, one of my last YouTube videos. It's really embarrassing. I acted it out.
You did?
Yeah.
I'm going
so at the end of not the video I last did, but the one before that's on like nuclear war and the doomsday clock, I act out the president's speech at the end. It's a little embarrassing, but.
So is there a risk with this movie that if you watch it again now, it gets a lot worse? And the movie that came to mind when you said that was Deep Impact. In my memory, that was an amazing movie. But was it really terrible?
Deep Impact was just because it came out at the same time as Armageddon. And I don't know, I felt like it was nothing compared to Armageddon. I don't know why they both came out at the same time. It was really, really poor marketing by them. But yeah, no, Deep Impact was just a bad movie, I think. Independence Day, I watched it again like 2 years ago, and it was as good. So,
wow. Any other quarantine movie recommendations? Because of course, Independence Day really fits in well with what we're going through right now.
It's not a movie, but if you want a really good show, watch Dark.
Oh yes,
I think it's on Netflix.
My favorite show.
So good. It's unbelievable. It's actually in German with subtitles, but don't let that put you off. It's so good.
Did you watch that, Brent?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the one that I think I told you about that.
Oh, did you tell me about that? Oh my God!
We binged it straight through, like 3 nights in a row. We finished it all. Yeah, it was so good.
That is probably the #1 show, Liv, correct me if I'm wrong, that we can't talk about because there's nothing we can say about it now other than go watch it.
No, just watch it. Like if you're stuck in quarantine, there you go.
Because the thing with this show is that there's so many twists and turns that any little thing could give away a big part of the story. So go watch Dark on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But please stay watching right now on the podcast. Okay, give me your second number for this between 1 and 555.
22.
Oh, you're staying really close. Let me see.
Making your life easy.
Yeah. Are you more into looks or brains?
Brains.
And on that scale, what's Egor's looks rated as?
It depends whether he's got his glasses on and his hair down. He can rank anything from a 6 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10.
Wow. And who's got the longest hair right now, you or him?
Me. He's had it's quite short for him now.
Yeah. I just in my mind, Egor is still like rocking this giant thing way outside my frame.
No, he doesn't have that. No, it's like there's still a lot of hair. It's still long, but yeah, he's gone more for sort of like I don't even know how to describe it. So he looks like something off a romance novel sometimes.
Oh boy! All right, give me your third and final number. Let's go a little bit. Let's go a little bit higher this time.
311.
Okay, that's a bit of scrolling here.
Dude, because of the band?
No.
It's a shame.
So 311.
Yeah, there's a band 311. You've never heard of 311? Oh
yeah, I do remember it. That was not what was in my mind.
This is a great question.
At least.
I'm really curious. What's the first thing you've purchased from your first paycheck? Something significant that you remember getting when you first started working, or maybe was it your first winnings in the game show or in a poker tournament?
I don't know if this is an interesting answer, but I genuinely can't remember, and I think because I've just never really been, with the exception of my car, which I bought more recently, I haven't really made any major purchases where I'm like, this is something I always wanted. Yeah, no, I don't. I really don't know. Probably alcohol or something back then. Who knows? I used to party a lot, so back in the day.
So when you won San Remo, you did not like cross a few things off the list that you always sort of wanted, or get situated by yourself.
Bought an apartment.
Oh well, there you go. That's a kind of a big purchase.
Yeah, that was But I mean, this was not like my first paycheck, really, right? So that was the only like major thing. No, I never had I definitely did more experiences. Like I traveled to places I guess I wanted to go to. Yeah, sorry. Not a very interesting answer.
Not a great question, because for most people, your first paycheck is going to be like $60.
Exactly. My first paycheck was just like covered my rent. I think I paid my rent. So yeah.
Right. So what was your first job then? Like what did you do before getting into poker?
I worked for like a year in a advertising agency that were doing like online ads. This is back in like 2005. So it was like really early days. It was like a subsidiary of AOL. And I was doing like the analysis on like figuring out when was the best time to like deliver the ad campaigns. It was like the sponsored search links on Google. I had to figure out like the right keywords and the right time and so on. It was so boring. I hated it. I couldn't get out of there quick enough.
Yeah, that sounds awful. Brent, did you have any funny jobs when you were younger?
I was a dishwasher, and they called me Skippy. Yeah, in our local restaurant. And the first thing I bought, I remember, and it was like a $60 paycheck. I was young, probably way too young, and my God, I shouldn't even tell this story. But I went in on an eighth of really crappy weed. Yeah.
That's classic.
I remember it. Yeah.
I went around town when I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11, just like to our little, I grew up in a really small town, like maybe 800 people. I went door to door asking if I could clean the yard or, wash the car, all that sort of stuff. And with the first money I made, and it was probably about, I don't know, maybe 20 total euros that I'd saved up, I bought Pokemon cards. That was the first ever thing that I bought with my money.
I believe that story.
Shout out to Pokemon, by the way. If you grew up in that era, you know how serious that stuff was. Brent, the last sort of game / nonsense on the show, and there's plenty of room for some serious talk within this topic as well. Is one of your favorite segments, Brent? So I don't want to hold you up any longer because you've put a lot of time into this.
A lot of time, a lot of thought, and I love how different folks with different strokes come up with the answers for this. And Liv, to me, is going to be very interesting. Liv, are you familiar with word association?
Yes.
Okay, so we call this segment Snap Call. You have to answer as quickly as possible. Cannot go into a deep thought. And I'm going to give you 5 names you've heard of, and you immediately have to come up with a poker player that associates with that name.
Okay.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, Brad Pitt.
Timex.
Interesting. I thought this was a softball. I thought Egor was going to get this. I'm sorry, Egor. You are not Brad Pitt.
No,
okay?
he doesn't look like Brad. It just doesn't look the same.
Oh, I see. You're going with the actual physical resemblance. See, this is why I love it.
I don't know. You just wanted me to go with what came to my mind first.
This is totally your thing. Okay, here we go. Number 2, Meghan Markle.
Kristen Bicknell.
Well done. Well played. Number 3, Taylor Swift.
Mm,
Stumped her.
no one came to mind. I mean, Kristen came to mind again first, but that was probably because she was on my mind. Taylor Swift, Eric Seidel.
Perfect. I actually love that answer. He listens to Taylor Swift, right? I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Number 4, Kanye West. Big controversy right now. Not sure you saw that, Taylor and Kanye. They're back.
Kanye West. I have no idea why he came into my mind, but Martin Jacobson.
There we go, Martin Jacobson. He's Kanye West for you.
Not in appearance, not in personality. Very different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And the last one, Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Fauci. Wow, his name's God. The hedge fund guy. Why is my mind gone blank? The hedge fund guy who
From New York City?
Oh,
no, he's English.
Talal?
And he plays all the high rollers and he's really nice. And my mind has gone completely blank. What his name is?
Talal?
Yeah, Talal.
Shikirchi?
Yeah.
Rate a lot?
Rayla, yeah, exactly.
Okay, Talal Shikirchi. That is Dr. Fauci.
I love that.
That's all I've got. That's Snap Call. I love that. I think that Eric Seidel for Taylor Swift is my favorite answer.
I think so too. I think that's tremendous.
Thank you.
Liv, we touched on this briefly at the start of the show, but I do want to get back into it here real quick. Now that you've no longer focused on poker at all, I want to know, what does the quarantine look like for you? You said you don't really have a routine or a schedule, and you're now realizing that other people, the adults, do that. So what's the quarantine been like, and what are you guys sort of working on?
So I'm going to be working on a couple of things. I'm currently working on trying to come up with memes that will will have the best positive impact around the world for people to do, like whether it's, the people who aren't staying home to actually stay home, or wash their hands more often, or maybe make their own face masks, if we think that's a net positive. Basically, we've got a pretty good network of people with very large followings, and I'm just talking about we, just like sort of collectively in our group. And if we could get some like A-list movie stars to do really good like challenges that encourage people, like a 30-day challenge that you have to do every single day to at a time that you would normally go out, let's say, that really like encourages people to stay home. So that's what I'm sort of currently working on, is like brainstorming some things like that. And then otherwise, I'm going to just be working on like more video ideas, and try and produce some. That'll be my main thing, my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I love the channel, by the way. People who haven't really checked it out yet, the YouTube channel. Subscribe to Liv's channel. It's in the description of this video. So please make sure to do that.
Well, after the podcast, go there and do it.
Yeah, exactly. Brent, go ahead.
Okay, a couple questions from the chat that I think are very interesting, starting with Anderson Urbano. Once again, my man, thank you for tuning in. Yes, I do find this appropriate. Ask Liv her opinion about psychedelics in the human evolution and self-actualization process, please.
I'm a big fan of psychedelics, provided they're done in like the right way. I don't think they are good for just like partying, definitely not. But if it's done with like an intention and in a safe environment, and I think they can be extremely powerful and insightful. So yeah, I think I view them as a technology that can, depending, I don't think they're right for everybody, but I think for a lot of people, they're a technology that can be extremely useful.
Great answer. I'm going to be experimenting with those during this quarantine, with your advice. Number 2, also from our YouTube chat, Matt McLaren. Thank you, my man, for tuning in. Liv, what's the greatest thing you've learned from being in the poker world?
Greatest thing I've learned from being in the poker world. Wow. I mean, I give my my 3 lessons I give in my TED talk, which are genuinely the 3 best things I've learned from poker, which is like the first thing is like understanding the role of luck. You know, when I won San Remo, I let the sort of luck factor delude me for a little while. In order to win any big tournament, you have to get exceptionally lucky. Even if you play great, you still have to get really lucky too. And because it's, you know, you only maybe will play 150 live tournaments in your entire life, and that's such a tiny sample size. It's not actually that meaningful. And then our egos have this like habit of taking all the credit for our wins and outsourcing the blame for our losses to luck. And so that was a really important lesson for me, is just like to try and think of, you know, remind myself, okay, when something really goes right, what did I do right in order for that to happen? But also what went well, what, you know, how did I get lucky too? And just basically not let that luck factor delude you. And then the other things are basically like thinking probabilistically, and you know, the general teaching that the habits that poker players learn in the game is like, oh, I think he's bluffing here like 60 to 70% of the time, or I'm 20% confident that this bet will work, or, you know, that kind of like nuance, granular type of thinking that you can then use in your life as well. Like if I'm, you know, do I think it's likely that this, you know, if I pitch this TV idea that it will get picked up? I don't know. I think I give it a 5% chance or a 20% chance. Putting things in terms of like formal predictions is what I learned from poker, and it's super helpful.
Great answer. And again, you guys can find that, a lot of this stuff that Liv was just mentioning, on her TED Talk, which is out there. It's like 8 minutes long total. Totally worth it. Short, sweet, to the point. Great stuff. One more question from Twitter. This is from Greg D 99%. Says, hey, Liv, how's her steampunk Dyson Sphere project coming along?
Steampunk Dyson Spheres? It's slowly, really, really slowly. Haven't managed to disassemble Mercury yet to turn it into solar panels, but working on it. So
okay, I don't know what any of that means.
I have no idea what the question means or what Liv just said. I have no clue.
No idea.
If you search for my name and Dyson Spheres, DYSON, I made a video on that topic.
Is that on your YouTube page?
Yep.
There we go.
My YouTube.
To the YouTube page. I'm going to go through and watch all of your videos. I've only seen the coronavirus one, and then I saw one as 50,000 views, which I think is the world ending, the apocalypse sort of thing, doomsday. That's your.
Well, it's about nuclear war, and like how can we like assess the risks of it. And that's the one where I do the president's speech thing. So it's a little weird.
I'm diving in.
I'm gonna watch.
My acting sucks.
I'm gonna watch Independence Day tonight. I have to just find a low quality version of it somewhere and just watch it, or maybe find it on Netflix. Liv,
it's so good.
Liv, what I'm also curious about though is, you know, leaving poker behind, which you've done for so long, and still having Egor be in the game, at least for as far as I know, he still plays. What has that been like? Because of course you still see, you know, his progress and how much effort he puts into the game. And does it maybe encourage you to encourage him to step away from the game as well, knowing what else you guys could be focusing on?
That's a great question. Yeah, I'd say it's definitely a sort of, I don't want to say it's a bone of contention, but it's definitely a sort of topic that we wrestle with. You know, from his perspective, I totally understand. Like, I mean, he's worked so hard and he's so good. Like his game is as good as ever, but it's just like, it's difficult for him when like I'm now no longer wanting to travel to go to events, but he does. You know, that's like, he's definitely been playing far less than he should be. And you know, if you are going to be playing, then you need to really put in the hours. So yeah, it's like a sort of, in an ideal world, I think he should be doing something else at this point with his mind. And he is, I mean, the beauty of it is he is doing actually many things as well. It's not like because he's not playing as much full time, he's like working on a lot of other cool things. So it's difficult, but at the same time, I need to sort of remember that, like, just because I didn't have the love for the game anymore, that doesn't mean anyone else does. And he like loves it so much, and he's so good. You know, it totally makes sense for him to carry on playing because it's his favorite thing.
Would you say Egor is among the best in the world still, with what you see him do and how he sort of talks about the game?
I mean, I wouldn't know, to be honest, because I'm not. It's not like I'm talking to other people about the game, so I don't know like quite the levels that they're thinking on. I mean, all I know is that he is way beyond. He's like coming up with concepts. I was like, wow, I would never have thought of that. And so yeah, I do think he is. And I mean, just knowing the amount of work he's been putting in on solvers and so on, he must be up there. Yeah.
Good news for you both. There's a Poker Masters Online series coming up. I believe it's in the fall, Remco. Is that right?
No, it's in April.
Oh, it's in April. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. It's right away. So while you're quarantining, he can play a bunch of high rollers online. Doesn't have to leave. You can be right there doing your thing, and
perfect.
So I'm a purple jacket.
Yeah, but then he comes to bed late, and we are on a good, good schedule. I don't know.
I tried, Egor. I tried.
All right, Liv. So we can safely assume, as we wrap up this podcast, we can see you at least once a year in the World Series main event, whenever that takes place.
Totally.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep. At least you're going to still be with us in some kind of way. And then I'm sure Egor will drag you along to some of the more exciting stops around the world.
Sure.
Cool. Okay.
And I think it's going to be one of those things as well. Like once I've had another sort of 6 months or a year off, I'm going to be absolutely going nuts to play. So I just needed a break.
It's the same for Brent. He always says that he doesn't play poker anymore, and then he just plays poker again. So it never leaves you.
Not playing. I might play a little online tonight, but I'm not playing.
To my point exactly. Liv, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. You guys, once again, please subscribe to not only this channel and like this video, but also check out Liv's channel. It's in the description below. You can go there, subscribe, like her videos, watch them all, and let her know what you think. You guys also please know that the podcast is back next week. We're going to be live once again on Tuesday at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. I believe that is 9 o'clock Central European time. And if you have any questions or remarks, please leave them down in the comments. Please give us a thumbs up on this video. We'll be back with much more exciting content. But for now, this was the Poker Central podcast, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Awesome.
That was great.
Thanks, guys.
That was really cool.